Folks, if you're just, there we go. As you're joining, just some housekeeping items. If you wouldn't mind, you can adjust your name tag in your image frame by hovering over your image and clicking on the three dots on the top right. And if you wouldn't mind just putting your first name in that, and if you're able to denote what your role is in this, if you are an intern coordinator, if you are a mentor, if you are a county, pueblo, or tribal support or lead individual, if you can just note that, it'd be great for us. Looks like we have a good group on the call. And as we're getting started with this intern coordinator training, we just want to make clear that anyone is welcome. So regardless of your role, you are welcome to be here, whether you are an intern coordinator, whether you are a mentor, or someone who's working on this through the county, or maybe you're a coordinator of coordinators. So whatever your role is, we're happy to have you. We hope that today's helpful. And Christian, if we're all good, Jose, Rebecca, let's go ahead and fire it up. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike May. I work with Future Focused Education. We are a nonprofit intermediary out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. We do, among other things, work-based learning. So internships, and we create those for young people in the Albuquerque area and then other cities in New Mexico. So we work in Cuba, Santa Fe, Taos, and even Cruces with some of our interns. So we're happy to be here today. I am part of a team today with two other colleagues, Jose Villarreal and Rebecca Cisneros. They'll each introduce themselves in just a second. And then behind the scenes, we have a large support contingent from PED itself. Christian Naranjo is running the Zoom technology for us. And then there's other folks on the call as well that are out there. And so we want to give recognition to Denise Ojeda, Jaime Hernandez, and I think Mark Dusky has not joined this. I know you're all familiar with him. But this is the team that will be guiding you through today's experience this afternoon. And our goal today is to get through the lens of an intern coordinator, provide some overview and hopefully some useful activities, ideas, trainings, impulses for thought-provoking experiences that get you prepped for whatever your stage of readiness is in your own locale for your summer internship program. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over. I'll share my screen for just a second, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca as we get moving with our presentation. So Rebecca, would you like to go ahead and take over, remind us all why we're here, what this program is, and kick us off with an icebreaker?
Sure. I'm Rebecca Cisneros. I am the Youth Engagement Coordinator for the Department of Workforce Solutions. I'm here as a supporting partner, so if you guys have questions, concerns, anything like that, feel free to reach out to myself or any of our partners on the call today. Obviously, we want to thank you for being here. I do see some returning faces and I see a lot of new faces. So we're so excited that you're joining. We hope that this is going to be extremely helpful and informational for you. As you know, we have the opportunity to provide quite a few work-based learning experiences for people in our variety of communities. It's with the funds from the Public Education Department, and we are targeting high school age students. So a lot of these students that are coming into these roles that are going to be applying are going to be first-time workforce workers. This is their first time entering the workforce, so they might be new to some things. And then you might have some young people who have had a job before, but it's their opportunity to increase their employability skills. So we want to make sure that we give you the tools to best support these new workers. And also, we want to make sure that you feel supported as well. So what I'll do now is we do have our partners. I know Mike already introduced himself. We also have Jose. They are our two experts. They do a lot of work-based learning around the state. So we brought them in to make sure that they can share their best practices with you. And we hope that later on in this training that you're able to share some of your tips and tricks with us as well. I'll go to the next page, my dear. So if you're able to, please have your cameras on as much as possible. We want to see when you're really excited and maybe when you don't like our presentation as much. It'll help us judge what we should change and what we should keep doing. If you're able to, again, just update your name to your first name, either the county that you're with or the role that you're playing. And please feel free to engage with us in the chat box. If we're in the middle of something, there's a variety of us on this call that we can start answering the questions that we know, or we'll make sure that we don't leave it out, so that we don't want you to forget to ask that question either. And then, of course, if you can keep yourself muted until you need to speak, which is always where we forget to turn the mic back on. And then we're going to do just a quick icebreaker, which is going to see if you have the ability, please turn your cameras on. This is called Cameras On. It's an activity that I learned from an intern. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to ask you to leave your camera on if you've ever done X, Y, and Z. If you haven't, you can turn it off. So I want you to leave your cameras on if you are originally from New Mexico. Oh, we lost a few. We're glad you're here, though. We're going to invite you back. Okay. I'm going to have everybody turn them back on and leave your cameras on if you have returned to work in person. Oh, there's a lot. Okay. Leave your cameras on if you have ever been late to work. Now, leave your camera on if you blamed traffic, but traffic was the Starbucks line. We're gonna be working with a lot of young people who are gonna learn about that Starbucks traffic. So just keep that in mind just in case, because I know I've been guilty of it. And let's see, leave your cameras on if you enjoy 100-degree weather. I'm worried about you guys with your camera on. I'm worried. And then last, turn your cameras on if you are excited to host an intern this summer. All right, that's our little icebreaker. Something fun if you're hosting young people virtually, just try and keep things interactive and keep things moving. So again, thank you guys for being here, and I'll turn it over to Jose or Mike. I'm not sure who's taking it first.
Jose, am I still rolling?
You are, Mike. You want to share your screen again?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder in advance. Folks, I have an infamous reputation for talking and not sharing my screen. So we're starting off strong today. Again, Jose and I will primarily be tag teaming this presentation today. And we have a short outline of our goals. First of all, we hope to give you an overview of intern coordinator expectations. 2, we want to actually engage you to explore some of the resources that we've prepared and others that have prepared that we pulled and consolidated, really located on the PED website, which if you have not discovered it yet, we will share a link later so that you can see some ideas for how to structure this experience over the course of 6 weeks, as well as ideas for orientation and just hopefully some broader tools and techniques that might be helpful for engaging and supporting both interns and mentors, and hopefully some thought-provoking ideas that will help you better liaison with the county or the pueblo or tribe that you are working with. Again, before Jose and I jump into this, we just want to make clear we're passionate about what we do in our respective areas and in our communities in the state. Work-based learning is the big part of our work. And in this program, we hope to share things that are helpful to you, but we also acknowledge that each county and entity that is engaging in this work ultimately is designing this in their own area with their own team. So in no way is what we're putting out there today prescriptive, mandatory. It's really just designed to be an experience that hopefully will expose you to some things that maybe you were unfamiliar with, or get you thinking about some items you might want to prepare, and also maybe ask and promote kind of some conversation, ask for conversation around clarification of your role within your respective work-based learning community. Because again, those expectations of you will be different, we imagine, depending on where you are. So that said, we're going to jump right into things. And we thought it would be helpful to start off with what we felt were the basic expectations that we imagine are being communicated to you now, and that are going to guide the experience. So first of all, this slide just reviews the pre-session before the session actually starts. We're anticipating that you will be playing a role potentially in the application and matching process of interns. Again, that may vary from community to community, but that is a potential ask of your expertise. The second area is helping to plan the orientation and the 6-week curriculum. So that's something that sits squarely in your wheelhouse. And then the next piece is actually supporting the county's attempt, or the tribe or Pueblo's tasks and steps for onboarding the young people. So we think that's an area you could be involved. And then finally, whatever the orientation and or onboarding looks like and the kickoff, we're imagining you'll play a role in that. Again, these are the bullet points before the session starts. Once things are moving, once the interns are on the ground with their mentor, you'll hear Jose and I talk more about how to conduct check-ins, how to provide ongoing support, both for that intern and the mentor, and to facilitate communication between those two parties. And then we'll also, we're expecting you will then be facilitating that 6-week curriculum. You'll be managing timesheets and feedback forms, and we'll have examples of how that might roll out in your community as we step into the presentation. So that's, Jose, any other expectations you think we should hit before we roll into specifics?
No, I think that's really good, Mike. And if you can continue sharing your screen, we'll be good when I come up.
Okay, great. Yep, I'll just roll through. So at this point, folks, the next portion of the presentation is going to be sharing more specific ideas, resources with you. Again, just like Rebecca's icebreaker, we hope that our own facilitation of this session, as well as the activities, will inspire you to think, oh, maybe I could do that with my young people, because perhaps you're doing a Zoom session for orientation, or we'll share things that you can do in person, face to face. So again, we're trying to model very much the learning by doing, with a focus on professional mentorship, caring adults in this community and around our state, and allowing for career exploration. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jose to take this next portion.
Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you, Rebecca, for the icebreaker. That was fun. My name is Jose Villarreal. I am the Workforce Community Liaison for Farmington Municipal School District, and I oversee our work-based learning program here in the Four Corners, and I'm also co-developer of the program. So coming from that perspective, again, echoing Mike and sharing best practices, we're not trying to be prescriptive in what we offer, but let's start with the structural overview and resources that are on PED's website. This first slide here, the center focus of this slide here, I didn't mean for it to look like a 1980s Tecmo Bowl theme, but it looks like it grabs your attention anyways. But just looking at that in detail, it's definitely something that creates relationships with the intern being the centerpiece, and the intern coordinator on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, the mentor supporting that intern. So the relationships are key in this process. And it's throughout the whole 6 weeks. So, and neither one is more important. They're both vital as far as the intern's success. And in our program, we actually use a tool to monitor students' progress, which is supportive on the bottom there. The graphic on the bottom of the middle picture is what we call a mentor feedback survey. We're going to dig into that and how that actually is something that you can use tangibly that will basically gauge the progress of the intern throughout the program. We call it our actually one of the most supportive KPIs, key performance indicator. Next slide, please, Mike. So just looking at that feedback on the right-hand side, before we look at the 1, 2, 3, is a screenshot of 3 of the criteria, which there are 8 total, on a Google Doc that adult coordinators in our program share out with mentors every Friday via email. So this tool is a tremendous thing for accountability, but also, again, to just show the progress. And we want to actually take you all through an example or just a test so you can see what the mentor sees here shortly. But again, just looking at this and explaining it in detail, the sliding scale of 1 to 10, how an intern is doing from week 1 all the way to week 6, below expectations all the way up to exceeding expectations. More likely than not, students are going to do really well in the beginning, but we ask mentors, and I think it's definitely relevant here to ask you, the adult coordinators, to relay the message, to be very realistic if you do use this tool with mentors grading or evaluating their interns. But I'm gonna actually share something in our chat right now so we can be interactive, and that is actually the test of this form. So we're gonna take 3 to 5 minutes right now to actually do this, and we'll just leave this up, Mike, this slide. Well, everybody takes the time to do this so they can actually see the survey in its entirety. Again, it's a very simple survey, and we have the example on the website. So 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to start my timer right now, and then I will get us back on the presentation. So please, everyone, fill this test out starting now. 3 minutes, countdown. Oh, Mike, you went to a different screen there. There we go. If you're having trouble opening this on your web browser, just throw it in the chat. Let me know. All right, we'll give it another minute and a half, and then we'll come back and talk about it a little bit more. Christian, thank you for posting the website where all the resources are.
Got it.
Jose, just let me know when you want me to kick back to the slide.
Okay. We've got, will the results from the survey, the first question, will the results from the survey be going directly to you, or will the coordinators have access to results? So this is a good question. I'm gonna touch on that here in a minute. And why don't we just come on back, Mike, with sharing the screen here, and I'm gonna talk directly to that question. So this is just a test survey. So it is under the assumption that the adult coordinator, which is you, actually goes in and creates a Google form and submits it themselves to their respective mentors in their interns cohort, if that makes sense. So if you're familiar with Google Forms, it's a very simple process in creating your own survey. This is a template. You can copy and paste. You can use the 8 criteria that are there. You can take away from it. I want to also add that the additional comment section at the very bottom is extremely valuable, because from our experience, most mentors state in that additional comment section, hey, the intern's doing great. They're an asset to the team. They are way more experienced than I thought they would be, or just really lifting them up. In addition, on the flip side, we've seen things like, oh, so this intern, maybe during week 4, for example, in the internship, they become a little bit, less motivated, and they get on their phone, for example, during downtime. So they let us know that information. Or if, for example, a student or intern does not call into work and just does not show up, this is a great accountability tool in addition to all the criteria in basically grading their efforts moving forward. So again, it's something that we use every single week of the semester. So it's condensed down to 6 weeks. It should be extremely valuable if you utilize this tool. And just kind of moving forward from this tool, if there are any other questions, or if there's any kind of hands-on creating this form or what to do, please ask them at the end of this presentation, and I'd be happy to do a breakout or just share that answer with you. But moving on to the other 2 items on the left-hand side, underneath the mentor feedback survey, summer internship packet, and employability skills slide deck, those are all found, and they're directly linked together. So these are the offerings that we're providing from our program, and again, they link together, and they are together on the website. Let's go to the next slide real quick, Mike. So this is actually the back end of that survey, which it really helps the coordinator communicate to the intern how valuable this feedback is, or really reflecting on the feedback from their mentors. So this is in the internship packet, one of the several items in that internship packet. So if you utilize the tool with your mentors, that survey, sending it out on Fridays or at the end of the week, you receive the survey feedback, and you don't share it out with your interns yet, because our idea is that you will be meeting with your interns weekly, and that could be at the beginning of the week. That's how one of the counties is doing it. They're actually meeting with them on Mondays. That said, this is a very specific reflection piece to that survey. So just reading the instructions out loud: interns, rate yourself from 1 to 10 on how you think you scored in each respective row during your internship last week. So they will score themselves first on each of the criteria. Then they will receive their feedback, which will likely come in a PDF, or if you do it on Zoom, then it'll come in an email, for example, in a PDF. When I mentioned the first PDF, you likely have to print out the results and then hand them out if you're doing face-to-face. Then they reflect, they get their mentor scores, and then they reflect on those scores. It's a tremendous learning lesson for them. And sharing out, if appropriate, this really builds camaraderie within the team of your cohort on what is their best practice, or what do they think work habits and attitude means, what do they think about dependability and problem solving, so on and so forth. Great soft skills that they're working on, and technical skills on the job. So we actually take this a little deeper on the next slide. So after they do this, say at the beginning of the, I'm going to cover this, and then we'll kind of go over more of the employability skills. So this is actually also in your internship packet. So kind of shifting gears here. We actually use this in our program. It's a timesheet / skills grid. So we actually set the tone with interns, saying that if you do utilize this, of course, in your cohort, that it is their responsibility to actually fill this out and get their mentor signatures on the back end of the week with these timesheets. So we educate them on what 3.5 hours means, hour and a half, or 3.5 hours, 3.75, 3.25, so on and so forth. They get their mentor's initials, and the skills grid is really cool because it's like a mini reflection. So this is a tremendous thing that they can do every day. And then the mentor's responsibility on the back end would be to initial and verify that they actually did the hours and they are doing their skills grid, and they can maybe help them with the skills grid. There's an example there. And then of course you can help the interns when you meet up with them to kind of express more on this. Next slide, please. So There's more to the internship packet. So I recommend that you go out and look at the website and review these in detail on what's available. But again, this internship packet, the mentor feedback form, and this employability skills slide deck are all linked together, because as you can see, that these are screenshots of the slide deck, the first slide and then a few slides in. What employability skills are listed in the slide deck. It's basically taking students through a deeper dive on what they're doing on the surveys. So as you can see, productive work habits, teamwork, professionalism, time management, and so on. We have basically embedded in this curriculum or PowerPoint talking points, but also examples or activities at the end of the slide deck. I anticipate most of you here joining us today are either our teachers, former teachers, coaches at some point. So you know that these are simple. If you go look at the PowerPoints, there's simple talking points. So I would add to that. I recommend you add some activities or add some icebreakers, which Mike's actually going to take us through here in a little bit. But continuing to the next slide, these are examples of more of what's on the presentation as far as the PowerPoint employability skills that's linked to the three resources I'm talking about. That said, these are an example of some of the activities that are at the very end of the respective criteria, like work habits. This is an activity for students to do. These activities are also embedded in the student internship packet. So everything's there for a student if you want to utilize everything that we're talking about right here. That way you can do it either face-to-face, or maybe you can share it out in a digital format. Either way, it's definitely something that you can use that will promote, again, what we're trying to educate students and learning on the job, these different types of skills. But also it's fun, just like in the classroom when you meet up with the students, to kind of review them and go deeper into the subjects. Next slide, please. So moving on a little bit from those resources, this is just an example of process for a student. Say that they attend the orientation for the summer internship, and that's kind of your kickoff. We're going to give an example of that here in a little bit, but ultimately during, say potentially you meet with your interns on Mondays, and the intern coordinator hosts the employability skills workshop and also goes over the resources that we've just been touching on, whether it's Zoom or live, and it could be potentially from 2 to 4 hours. And then the rest of the time, they're actually at the work site with their mentors. And that could be 16 to 18 hours, 20 hours total weekly for 6 weeks. The timesheets and skills grid, I also mentioned that already, that they will be basically filling those out and getting them verified from their mentors. And then the next slide, please. And this is a potential schedule for an intern coordinator. It's an example. Again, doing all of the pre-work, the screening, and helping with the application process, the placement of the students. And then you all maybe will potentially help with kicking off an orientation day with your respective counties and tribals or pueblos. And on the right-hand side is kind of a visual of what you can potentially do. This is what one county is doing. Again, the employability skills Mondays, basically the deliverables there for a coordinator are to host those employability skills workshops and also provide feedback for those interns on the reflections with that one, that worksheet that's in the packet, in addition to validating timesheets. That's one of the responsibilities of the intern coordinators at this example. And then, of course, workshop planning on a Tuesday and a Friday or a Thursday, for example, for that next Monday could potentially be some of your hours of the 20-hour week, and also the facilitation of that survey to mentors in an email. That will be one of the deliverables if you utilize this model, and that goes out on the end of the week. And ongoing support and planning, that is kind of just being on the call and being there to support the mentors if there's an issue with an intern, and also helping with HR and whatever is needed there, but also being available for interns if they need to communicate to you, being that support system for them. So that's what this slide deck is, or this slide is for, in the example of a weekly schedule. I hope this helps for those that were just like, what do I do with my 20 hours? This is definitely something that is valuable for some intern coordinators. Next slide, please. So we definitely covered a lot there. We are asking that we take a 3-minute break here, Mike. We're still kind of fresh into this thing, but we're gonna come back.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Let's say, why don't we just we'll give people a quick stand and stretch break. We suggest if you're working with young people, if you happen to be doing onboarding via Zoom, keep this in mind. It's totally okay to give people a 3-minute stretch break, get up, turn off your cameras. So why don't we do that now? Everybody can hit the reset button, and then we'll come back and we're going to dive into some activities and let you start playing with some of the tools that are out there. Okay, we'll start the stopwatch. We'll see you in 3 minutes. Okay, folks, if you can start allowing the Zoom screen to reel you back into your previous position. If you want to pop your camera on, that way we'll know when we have a critical mass of people back with us. With 34 folks, we can just about see, not everybody, but we can get a sense. So the next portion, as I mentioned, we're going to jump into some of these activities a little more in depth. We're going to do some in a group. You'll have a chance to look at resources. And Jose and I thought that it would make sense to start off with the whole notion of orientation, because in some way, as an intern coordinator, you are going to be playing a role in whatever your local community is going to call this, either an onboarding step, orientation, a kickoff. And there's some key things that we're anticipating you would want to include, and that you're also going to coordinate this with the county or the pueblo or the tribe that you're working with. So we're going to jump back into the presentation, and we'll start off with the orientation. So this slide is simply making clear that whatever you do, we're anticipating you're going to be involved in planning a welcome and an introduction, right? And that's going to involve your key partners. And if you do this in one day, this is framed as if it were going to be one day, you probably need to plan for a lunch break, right? You may be doing this on site. I know some counties are planning for this virtually. And then you're going to be thinking about some of the resources that you might want to use. You're going to do some coordination with a mentor. Perhaps there'll be, some counties are planning to do face-to-face meetings and meet and greet before the intern actually starts. And there'll be some logistics that you want to take care of. And so this is what we're going to step into first as we look at this aspect of the experience. Now, again, Jose already pointed this out. These are on the PED's website. If you look, you will see a list of resources. And what you're going to be seeing now is links. The resources we'll be sharing are linked to these titles. One is called Intern Orientation and 6-Week Curriculum, Condensed. The other one is the actual facilitation guide for an orientation and a 6-week curriculum. There are multiple resources on the website. And so Jose pointed many of those out in the first part of today's session. And these are additional ones. We suggest that you should certainly take a look at both and or all, and then you can make choices. The condensed version leaves you less options. Jose has a much longer list of options, and for many of you that may be appealing. So there's the bottom line for us is that you consult the resources, use the ones you find helpful, and hopefully help you plan an experience that's engaging for your young people. So however you choose to do the orientation, whether it's one day or a half day or even spread out over the first week, we're anticipating that you're going to run some sort of icebreaker, some sort of get to know you, that you're going to do some community building in the cohort. Maybe you'll want to identify some strengths with your interns. Maybe you'll want to engage with them in some activities, exploring how they view the world of work. And maybe you even want to touch on some of their own hopes and fears for this type of experience. As Rebecca, I think, mentioned earlier, for some of these young people, this will be their first formal work experience. And so they're going to come at this with a lot of different feelings and thoughts and expectations. So what we'd like to do is actually start off, and we're going to have you do an activity with us, and we're going to use the chat box. So this is a handy tool if you're doing your orientation with your young people via Zoom. The chat box is your friend. We're going to start off in a negative space. So I know in this little header or this slide that we shared, it said dream job. But before we get to that, we're going to start off with some negative associations with the world of work. So I want you to put yourself in the position of a teen, or remember back to when you were 16, 17, 18. For me, that was a little while ago, but I still have some pretty vivid recollections and memories of my first work experience that unfortunately did not pan out so well. So what I'd like you to do in the chat box is put in some of the negative associations that you have and you could think that a teenager might have of the notion of work. And we're just going to let the chat box ride for a second and see what kind of negative ideas we can put in there. Grunt work. Perfect. Jamie started us off strong. Whew, oh my God, this is flying, guys. Waking up early, boring, doing the same stuff that no one else wants to do. Nothing fun. Once a manager yelled at me for no reason. That happened to me, Erica. Can't use my phone. Bosses giving order. Adults are judgmental. A popular one that I've heard from young people, they also say, adults are old. I'm going to be stuck with old people. Nothing to do. Not checking the phone, not able to check the phone, no free time. Somebody, Rebecca, is saying, is this going to be like this every day? Long days, long hours, missing out on summer free time. That is such a great observation. From Crystal, thank you. Hannah saying, being embarrassed in front of other people. And then the whole notion, Steve's naming bosses trying to catch you messing up. Working outdoors in the heat. And then Maria wrapped it up with something that you don't like. Social anxiety, what a great point from Crystal. So folks, Jose and I are very assets-based, as is Rebecca and the whole PED team. We believe in positive youth development and sometimes engaging with young people and negativity is okay, right? Because it can frame what their prior experience was. Now, one step that we do, and I'm going to just extend this chat for just a second, is we'll take this to a second level and ask the person to think, what is their dream job? So you take that negativity and you park it somewhere, and then you transition them and say, now I want you to imagine your dream job. And that could be as a 16-year-old, but we're going to do it today, just asking you all, use the chat and write in your dream job. And as you think about that dream job, I want you to think about one thing that you would need to be able to know or do well to fulfill the expectations of that dream job. What's something you need to be able to know or do to make that dream job a reality, and not to get it, but actually execute on the job? So take a second and think. And you're going to put things in the chat again, and we're going to shift from negative to your dreams and hopes around a job. I see the mayor of Santa Fe. Awesome. So think for a second, somebody who's a park ranger, the mayor of Santa Fe, what's something that you need to know or be able to do to be able to perform that job and that job well? School counselor, you have to work well with kids. Awesome. The mayor of Santa Fe has to engage with funders. A dog rescue on a ranch. Awesome. And Hannah is saying you need to have some money to do that. If you're going to be a ranger, you have to know the local area and the wildlife in it. So you probably also have to know some biology, have some environmental science skills. You're going to need social skills. If you're a fish biologist, you need to be knowledgeable of all different types of fish. If you're going to do an animal rescue shelter, you got to have good knowledge about animals. Again, animal behavior, probably some biology in there as well. Probably also just some local knowledge about the community, right? Community values around engaging with with animals. SeaWorld trainer, how to get along with people and perform in public. An event planner, you got to know how to network, have good facilitation skills, good social skills, as well as the venue knowledge. So folks, we could do this. I find this stuff fascinating because it's so cool to ask people, adults or young people, what they're really into and what they think they need to know or be able to do that. And that helps a young person turn a corner. And the arc you are connecting with this is to tell them this internship, whether it's your very first internship or first work experience, or you've done something before, we are doing our best to connect you with adults who are passionate about what they do in the workplace. And when that happens, there is a good chance that some of the skills that they may name for their dream job could actually be helpful or be found in this summer internship. And so your job as an intern coordinator is to help them start to tease out those connections. And that is just an example of an activity you could do early on, either in orientation or in the first week, to help them start thinking about what is it that I'm really interested in? What do I need to know and be able to do what I'm interested in? And where could I find that perhaps in my internship? Either noted in a position description, and when I'm on site, how do I look for that? So the activities that are now being projected are simply other examples of things you could do to get to know your interns, create a sense of community. This is an icebreaker that can be helpful. It could be useful even in a mentor and intern orientation, if that were helpful. We would suggest that you reference at some point in this early orientation the position description. Now, some counties and tribes or pueblos are using these, some are not. It's simply a resource that may be helpful. It allows the different mentor sites to say, this is what the work is in this setting. And you can see here, this is just an example. This is from a medical setting at UNMH Hospital here in Albuquerque. And it's divided up into essential functions. And then it actually goes into the hard and soft skills. So as an intern coordinator, if you know your mentor has created one of these, this is a great resource for you to reference in the early days of orientation and training, because it creates a direct connection to the site and the young person and allows them to look in advance. This is an example of a second piece, other activities you might want to hit. We're going to do one more activity out of this, but you can see there's some other things listed here, like first day readiness. If you do an orientation in advance, it's super helpful to help young people learn how to greet other professionals in their space of work. We sometimes will even practice doing fist bumps, handshakes, elbow bumps. In the time of COVID, you got to get creative, right? Even as we come out of this pandemic, this is something that in some workplace settings, you'll want to alert them that maybe a handshake right out of the gate is not the way to go. But how to make an introduction, how to even make small talk, right? There are going to be older people that are curious about them in the workplace, and you want to prep them ahead of time. You also might want to hit on notions of self-care and stress management, problem solving, and also likely in your orientation, you will include something about how to stay safe, how to be in an environment with adults, and if something feels a little off, how do you reach out and get some support? Or if you're confused about something that's being asked of you as an intern. So again, we're going to try another brainstorm activity using the chat. This is called an empathy map. And we're going to ask you, you can do this with an intern if you're the coordinator and ask them to do this in advance. But we're going to ask you to put yourself in, well, no, let's do the one where you, we'll take the version where you are actually imagining yourself as an intern. So on the first day, when you roll into that site, what are you going to be thinking and feeling? And what are you going to be, well, for today, let's just limit it to that. What's going to be going through your mind? What are you going to be feeling? Maybe what are you going to say and do when you first arrive there? So we'll use the chat again. And this is an activity you could do with your interns. We have also done this with mentors, just to get them in the mode of thinking, wow, what's that first day going to be like as an adult? But for purposes of this activity, let's just run this as if you were an intern showing up for your first day, and let's put in the chat some ideas that people have. So I love the person who wrote in, I'm going to be nervous about messing up. Thank you for that. A lot of people are writing in, Sarah, Janae, feeling nervous, nervous that people, whether they're going to help you, whether they're going to welcome you, a little bit of anxiety, the whole notion of not knowing what exactly to expect. Some Christian writes in, will I be getting in the way? Say, hey, what's your Snapchat? Rebecca, that's how she's going to lead on her first day as an intern. So that's going to be an interesting conversation starter. Somebody saying that they really hope they remember everything. Anxiety about meeting new people, not knowing what to do. Will I be a burden to my mentor? People are writing that they just hope they don't mess up. So this type of, the whole notion, anxiety about meeting new people, if you actually practice that ahead of time, and we've done this as simply as making 2 concentric circles with a group on the inside and a group on the outside, and each person is facing the other, and you can actually do little small talk introductions and then give them about 20 seconds and then rotate. And so you have these 2 circles that are inside each other. The inside faces out, the outside circles looking at the inside. And if you do have the good fortune of doing your coordinating training for interns face to face, this is a wonderful thing to do because you can really coach them through how to present themselves on that first day. So again, some of these, hopefully these are thought-provoking or at least give you some ideas. The other activities that are in this packet, stress management is always a good thing. Young people, especially coming out of the pandemic, are quite in tune with what stress looks like and what it might look like in their work setting. There are some activities embedded in here. This is an actual quiz. There's a link to this. If you go to the resource document, you can click on a link and it'll open up a little online survey that takes 2 minutes. And so it's an activity that you can engage them in terms of anticipating potential stress at their internship site. Both Jose's resources that he hit earlier in his menu, as well as in this, there are some problem-solving scenarios that we highly suggest you think and maybe even customize. So think about them, customize them for your setting. Having somebody work through a scenario with a group of young people about what you might do if you feel sick on the day your internship is to start, or at any time. What are the steps that you would then take? Who do you contact? Another scenario could be that your family suddenly is going out of town. This happens, especially during the summer. And you, as a young person, know you're supposed to be at your internship site, but your family's leaving. So what do you do? And the last one is a broke down car, right? Something happens with your transportation. Again, these are all simply examples. Staying safe, reaching out, naming this with young people. This is often the mindset we encounter. 6 weeks is a very short period of time. And if a young person is hesitating about reaching out for help, just as a mentor might as well, if something feels a little off, it's possible that a lot of time transpires and you're a little behind the curve. So we suggest being very proactive in talking to the young people to say, if anything seems amiss, here's what you do. And trying to name some of these mindsets can help disarm them and empower them to activate support resources. So here, we kind of hit on this at different points, but in your orientation or the early days of the internship, be sure that you talk to them about attendance, communication, confidentiality at the site. Jose has some great forms that can be used if necessary, if your county doesn't already have those as a resource. And it's really great to talk to a young person about that in advance. Appearance, we emphasize to the mentors that they needed to be upfront, either in their position description or in their own orientation work in the early days, to help the intern understand what should they be dressed, how should they be dressed in that setting, what are virtual guidelines if they're doing hybrid work, if they're going to pop onto a Zoom, what are COVID-19 safety practices that are in place. That's very essential for this. And then hit on the whole notion of transportation. How are you getting there? What's going to happen if you have an issue? What's your backup plan? Who do you contact? Remind them about cell phone usage. Empower them to check in with their mentor to get guidelines. Some sites are very strict, others are more lax. And be sure that your interns have your contact information as well as those of the mentor, right? You want to be sure that they are empowered to reach out to you whenever necessary. This is simply an outline. Again, condensed is the operative word with this resource. It doesn't give you as many choices as some of the other resources. It really suggests, here's 6 weeks, here's the 6-week themes that we would suggest if you want it more of a prepackaged experience. Again, this may not be for everybody, but if you look through this, it gives you kind of a lesson plan for things you could cover in that 6-week curriculum once you're through the orientation and young people have started. Something in week 2 around organization, management. Week 3, giving and receiving feedback. How do you advocate for yourself in the workplace? Again, the activities that are linked with this are all described in that curriculum facilitation guide, and there are lesson plans that you can use and step right into something for a given week. The weeks 4, 5, and 6 really go into communication and problem solving, how to correct mistakes in a setting, how to be a leader and how to be on a team is week 5, and then really exploring some professional pathways and tapping into the adults in the work setting is a way to bring closure to the experience. Again, these are all on the website. Christian has popped that link into the chat, I think a couple times now, and you can reference them as needed. We think whatever you're doing, Jose framed different frameworks for when you could meet with your interns, whether it's the beginning of the week, the end of the week, the middle of the week. That's up to you guys to figure out. But check in with your group of interns. Do something that allows them to name what went great. That could be a glow. What was more of a challenge or a growth area from the previous week. Look at their hours. Talk to them about how they're attending, and are things working? Is the schedule working out? And then whatever your main workshop activity is, whether you're drawing from a menu or looking at that 6-week kind of plan, jump into that and then still wrap it up with making a plan for the upcoming week. Again, this is just an example. If in week number 1, we're suggesting you dig into workplace culture. These are some of the activities that are listed in that resource packet. I'm not going to go through and do these with you right now, but they're there for your use. Again, self-organization, task management. This one has some components of how do you write a professional email? Maybe your interns are largely in office settings. Things like that could be really helpful to them. There are some other items in here, just a scavenger hunt for professional settings. So we don't want to overload you with examples. We thought that it would be helpful at this point to simply reach out to you now. We have a community of, I think about 30, it looks like there's about 30 people on the call if we take away the team from PED and Jose and myself. And we're just curious if there's anything that you would like to share that you feel like you're excited about as you look at your own cohorts. Maybe some of you have already started this work. Is there something that you're engaging with that you found fun or helpful that maybe you want to share for the group? Because we are a statewide community of practice. We're all trying to do our best in our own local communities. So we're going to open up the chat. If there's something that you'd like to put in there, feel free. And we'll take just a couple of minutes to see if people have anything that they think is cool to share. And if not, that's okay too. And if you're gonna do exactly what Jose and I say, then that's awesome too, because we'll just love you. I'm curious if at this point, if there's anybody who has already started with interns on the ground that is in this session, could you just put your name in the chat or give us a heads up? We're thinking, from what we understand, there may be 2 or 3 communities that are already underway, but we are not certain of that. And maybe that's not the case in this session. Cool, Jamie, thank you for that. Don't worry, we're not cutting you loose yet. She's already thanking us for giving her cool ideas. and she's got some ideas for, oh, people are conducting student interviews. That's so great. That is an idea worth sharing. If you are able with your group to do interviews before they get going, that is so awesome. So props to that team that's doing that. We know some folks are able to swing that, others are not, but that's such a great step. Is anybody out there actually helping then? I assume from this that some of the coordinators on the call are actually actively helping in the matching process. Is that the case? If you can put a little emoji up on the screen, that'd be awesome. I think we can get if you know how to click on a reaction, you can put a heart up, put a little thumb up. Awesome. Jamie's saying they got their list of interns today and now they're starting to help with placements. Erica's saying, yep, we're calling to match what they're interested in. That's so great. Crystal saying, yep, we're trying to match by interest. I'm sorry that it sounds like I'm kind of geeking out on this, but I love this stuff. And this is what Jose and I do. And there's nothing like having a great fit where the coordinators have been able to say, yeah, we think this is going to be a good match for a young person. So thank you for sharing these. Okay, well, in the interest of leaving a little bit of time at the end for some questions, we're just going to hit some final points. Ooh, awesome. Donna is writing in from Los Alamos that she's provided them with a list of departments with mentors to ask them to rank by level of interest. That is great. Online spreadsheet for available positions that we can all see and fill. That's so clever. Nice. So just a couple more things. Remember, as the intern coordinator, you are focused on the young person, but you are also supporting that mentor. So when this kicks off from the orientation through the 6 weeks, you want to be proactive in staying in touch with that mentor. Check in with them, get their cell phone, get their email, make sure you're just checking in to see how your young person is doing, and keep an eye out for those timesheets. Whatever your county or tribe or pueblo is doing to keep track of this, be sure that you're staying on top of it and reaching out quickly, because again, 6 weeks will move fast, and if you catch an issue late with attendance, it might be much more challenging to correct it. Again, don't hesitate to ask your intern coordinator for support. Well, you guys are the intern coordinators. So ask the county, ask the mentor. Don't hesitate to ask your colleagues in this effort. And certainly remind your interns to ask you. That's really what this slide is pointing to. Include it in some sort of orientation that you do, because your success in empowering your young person to reach out to you is going to really be predictive of how well they'll engage if there's a challenge, or hopefully when they're excited about something and want to share it. So before we take questions, we would really love for you to take a second and fill out a short survey. Jose and I used the survey from the last session to make some modifications today for the presentation. And so I'm going to drop this in the chat, and it's just a survey that will ask you some questions about what you've experienced today. And we'll use that because we're still holding a couple more trainings before the month is out. So while you're doing that survey, you can also multitask, note any questions you might have for Jose, for me, for Rebecca, the PED team. We'll give you about 5 minutes. Looks like it's about 3:07. So take a little bit, fill out the survey. Again, we want your honest and frank feedback. We're very appreciative that you're here. So any constructive feedback you have is welcome. And then we'll hit questions at the end. So I'm going to clam up and put my timer on, and we'll see you in just a couple of minutes.
I have a quick question for anyone that can hear me while they're doing their survey. Is this the same training that you guys did last Tuesday for the coordinators?
It is indeed.
Okay,
Well,
so I did,
slightly modified.
if I did it last Tuesday, then,
You get
I
extra
should-
credit.
oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome to fill out the form again if you'd like. And there, we did make some subtle changes. You're welcome to give us feedback, but thanks again for being here a second time. I hope it was helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you finish up the survey, if you do have questions, we're ready to move into that time space. If you need more time on the survey, just keep on working, but feel free to start typing in questions in the chat box. And then we'll open up the mic in just a second as well. If people need more time on the survey, could you just pop up a little emoji, a thumb, a heart, a happy face? So we'll get a sense of, I don't want to start talking if people need more time. Okay, we're going to take a little bit more time. Okay, so we're going to open up the chat box as well as the if you want to pipe up with a question. So anything that's on your mind at this point, and that you don't have to be a coordinator, whatever your role is, feel free to put any question out there that might be on your mind. Great. Well, that is a deafening silence, folks. So I hope that's a sign that Jose and our team were helpful to you. I have a really question. I'm just wondering if Jay is going to be hosting interns in a bike shop, because it looks like you got some cool bike action going on in the background there, my friend.
These were all collected by Free Bikes for Kids of Albuquerque, and
Ooh.
for today. That'll be the last of it, but
I don't know if it was just me,
are you
but Jay,
losing my audio? Yeah,
we're losing your audio, but it sounds like you're doing some cool things collecting free bikes for kids in Albuquerque, which is just kick butt. So thank you for that.
our pleasure.
Awesome. Folks, any other questions? It's so cool to have all of you on the screen and know that all around the state communities are getting ready to engage young people this summer. So we want to be mindful of your time. Jose, Rebecca, Christian, anything else that you want to add before we wrap this up?
Nope, I think you did great, Mike. I think we all teamed up and did really well. There are no questions. I think we did pretty good. It sounds like, or it doesn't sound like. But yeah, if there are any follow-up, yeah, or we scared you. If there are any follow-up questions, our contact information is actually on the website resource as well, or the website page from PED. So Mike, myself, and our team, Christian, Rebecca, Jaime, Mark, and Elaine are all on there. So thank you all so much. I would like to applaud PED for investing in our youth. So this is huge. This is a great opportunity. Hopefully we can continue this next summer. So let's have some success early on with this thing. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great afternoon, everyone. Remember, you can attend future trainings if they're helpful. We'll be back on the same BAT channel next week on Tuesday.